So in this video, um, it's basically about management and managing and how being a manager has changed since the 1900s and kind of just evolved since then. So he starts off by talking about the management paradox, which is pretty much just if you're a growing organization, it requires management and people don't like to be managed, especially Generation Y or millennials. And then he asked the question, can or should millennials be managed? And he said there's a stereotype about millennials that we are entitled, lazy, disloyal, unmotivated, and selfish. And although those might be true, it's just kind of how we've grown up, and it's just kind of it's not that that's what we are, but it's just kind of we get stuff done by being on our phones and stuff and not actually going out and doing stuff because we can all just access it on our phone, and it just makes people think that we're lazy because that's how it appears to be. But he goes into saying how Generation Y is built for tomorrow's workplace, and what he means by that is we're more resourceful and nimble and agile because we're not necessarily we don't need like a set time to do stuff or anything. We're really flexible and kind of just do stuff on the go, and we're just able to adapt super easily. And it's a big change from how the workplace has been in the past, because there's the traditional 9 to 5 and like you're supposed to be on this time schedule, but with Generation Y it's just kind of I'm gonna be here and do this for this time and just kind of doing all this stuff. And then
Keep going.
He talks about how we work and why we work are fundamentally out of sync with today's workplace. So he goes into saying how now, or in the past, it was you're going to work at one place, you're going to have this one specialization, and you're not gonna stay at one job too long or anything like that, or you're gonna stay at, like you would have stayed at one job for a long time, but now it's you don't have one employer, you have a portfolio of work. You don't have one specialization, you have many, and then you don't stay at one place very long. You go on tours of duty, is what he said. And then you don't need an office. You just need a place where you have Wi-Fi, because as long as you have Wi-Fi, you can be on your computer or be on your phone, and that is basically all Generation Y needs, because that's how we've just kind of grown up, and it's what we've grown up with. And then he goes in talking about he asked the question, why are we being managed like we work in factories? Because again, like in the 1900s and when the Industrial Revolution started, managers were, well, it was mainly factories, and people are still being managed like they work in factories, and it's just not how it works anymore. So he said it doesn't really make sense to still be managed like that. And then Robert Owen, who was a social reformer, he said that we should divide our day into 3 equal parts, and he said we should have 8 hours for work, 8 hours for recreation, and then 8 hours for rest. And I thought it was pretty interesting and just kind of cool about, or cool how he came up with that, because it's kind of a good plan, just because you have your day kind of segmented into that, and it would be nice just to have that kind of set schedule, but I just don't think it would work with today's generation, just because we're we just don't really like to be on a time crunch or anything. We just like to do our own thing. And then he talks about Peter Drucker, and he said Peter Drucker coined the phrase knowledge work, and he said that it pretty much means the most valuable asset of a 21st century institution will be its knowledge workers and their productivity. And then the speaker talks about how the existing management model doesn't make sense, and he said it's hard to change, and it's been hard to change because of tradition, and he said tradition is easy, tradition is comforting, and he said tradition stifles innovation. So even though we should change how everyone's managed, it's just been hard to change it, just because traditionally it's what we've done. So no one wants to change it because it's just the easy way to do it. And then he talks about how Jay-Z is this really, really good leader for his company Roc Nation, and he just really enjoyed seeing how Jay-Z works and reading his books and stuff, because he said Jay-Z is a leader who manages other leaders, because he manages like Kanye and big name athletes and all this. And he said that he's not like the traditional manager where he's over your shoulder, breathing down your neck, making sure you're doing this and that, but he just kind of motivates you to do your best work, and that's how he says you should manage people, because it brings out the best in people. And then he said to be the best manager, you have to first bring out the best in yourself, and then that will get the best out of your team or whoever you're leading. And he talks about how to get the best work out of your team, a manager shouldn't be breathing down your neck. And then he said managers should push you out of your comfort zone, because he said that's when the best work will happen, and he said that's when the magic happens. And then he just said, as a manager, once you get your team on the right track, you should just get out of your team's way, because once they know how to do it and what to do, they should be capable of doing it on their own, and that's when they'll get out of their comfort zone and figure out everything for themselves. And then he ended the video by saying we should stop managing altogether, and rather, instead of managing, he said we should lead. And I like that a lot, because managing in today's workplace doesn't really work, the traditional manager, but if you just lead someone and kind of motivate them how to do it and motivate them to get better, then that'll help them a lot more than being this overprotective and I guess super hard and kind of scary manager.